Good day everyone, and welcome to another vlog for the Exodus 7 to 12K JB project. Now you guys remember the shot that you're seeing right now? This was the defocus issue from way back for like the second shot. Now as you can see, this was what my results tend to be with the defocus node that's in Blender already. I don't know why it does this, but for some reason it creates this little hard edge instead of creating a fuzzy edge like over here. I don't know why it does that. It's probably because it uses the depth as some sort of mask or whatever, but for some reason it doesn't blur it where there's a significant difference. I don't know why that is, but anyway, God gave me a very cool solution to that problem, which I used for this shot and for another shot as well, which I'll get to a little bit later. And that looks like this. This is what defocus should look like. When you have a different sharpness in the background and the fuzziness in the foreground, you're supposed to get this little fringe over here. It's not supposed to look like that. It's supposed to look like this. Bad? Good. Now, I'm not knocking Blender's defocus node because a lot of people get amazing results that I just can't seem to get at all. Like, it's just puzzling. But anyway, God helped me put one together, defocus node. Remember I told you guys last week that even while I was going on about, oh, this is the best it's going to be, blah, 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 I felt like God showed me that there was a different method. And so I worked on that this week, pretty much only on that for most of the week. So I'm going to get to that. Now, as you can see, this is the old method, which I showed you guys like a billion times. I want you to pay attention to what the blur does. Before I tell you what it does, I want you to just watch it and pay attention to how the blur behaves. You can see it kind of bounces backward. The reason it bounces instead of rolls on through is because it fades. It doesn't actively blur the shapes. So now I'm going to show you what it looks like when you actually blur it instead of, and I'm talking about like separate layers here. This is a render layer, this is a render layer, and this is a render layer. I want to show you what it's supposed to look like. Now, in an ideal scenario, you will see what you just saw, where everything is blurred dynamically. You can see that. And it's kind of offset from each other. And the good news is there is a way to reproduce this effect in Blender, which is what God helped me do this week. So this is a very basic scene that I set up. We're talking like very stereotypical, you know, the bushes with the fence, and then the focus shifts from the fence to the background, the building, etc. Very typical, okay, of any kind of school scenario in an anime show. So this is what it looks like. Amazing. Pay specific attention to this tree over here. You can see it's out of focus, becomes in focus, and goes out of focus again as the fence comes back in. Now pay attention to the fence as it goes down. Look at that, look at that, look at that. Goes out of focus. So there's no cheating here. The fence goes out of focus as the tree comes into focus, and as the tree goes out of focus, the focus comes in on the building. And you can see we have the nice soft fringe and all that kind of other stuff. And the same goes for the fence as well. Pay attention to the sharpness of the tree, pay attention to the fuzziness of the fence over there. So I also did another example which is a little bit more speedy, so you do struggle to see a little bit more, but it does show a weakness within the node, which I will talk about as well. Okay, so again, same scene, very, very same scene, except it's a different approach. The only approach here is that the camera just moves along the fence and the focus shifts from the fence to the background. Okay, now as you can tell, there are some issues with it, apart from the fact that there is no motion blur. But primarily, the issue comes in with the reconstruction of the background. Because what happens is, in order to have these separate layers, you have to build the image back up. Now, when you build up lines that go very strongly in one direction and you have lines that cut through a different direction, the in-paint node, which I use to repair the images, connect based on angle. So if your angles go like this, you're going to have your repair going 90 degrees on that point. So in other words, it's not going to correct it like this line flows, it's going to connect it like this, sideways. So you got two lines going like this, where the fence used to be. So what I did was I added some blur in there and all that kind of stuff, as God led me to do it, to get it as fixed as possible and as unintrusive as possible. So this is the result of that. So I want to show you guys what one of the first renders for this looked like. As you can see, it did not have a very high blur value. It was only about 1, but it certainly still proves the point. Again, only 1. Now I want to show you guys something specifically over here. Okay. Look at what happens here with the in-paint node. This is what I was talking about earlier. You can see that it corrects down and it corrects up. And it corrects to the center because it works with the outline. So what God led me to do was to amplify the mask that separates the background from this middle ground so that the tree will become larger, a little bit larger in terms of its defocus. And that made a very big difference. It got rid of this, for the most part, this pulling, if you will. It's the clearest when you have the tree passing by the building. Look at that. Look at how it eats away at the building. Oh, it's terrible. Anyway, you can also see the repair over here. You can see that it pulls it down, pulls it up, pulls it down, pulls it up, and it creates this sort of jaggedy kind of result. I'm not crazy about it. It's functional. It's functional because you're not going to get a perfect image when you're trying to shoot through a fence, but the goal is to get it as good as possible. So just going to play you the whole thing. So the major goal was just to get the repairs to flash less and to have less repair noise. That's the best way I can describe this fringing effect, is repair noise. So getting on to another example. So this is one of the first results with the repairs applied. You can see that it flickers less, but it also flickers more. It's a weird combination. The repair is better, but it's also more obvious. It's weird. It's really weird. This was one where I still was working on the repair as well as the difference between the background and the foreground. There was a weird repair situation with the trees, with the middle ground, where I went with a double in-paint node. I just want to phrase this correctly. Basically what it meant is that I didn't just fill in inward, I also filled in outward, which caused a really, really weird looking error in the windows and stuff. It was just not good. So fixing that as well. You can see that the fringing repair isn't perfect when you look at the building. Hold on. Look over here. It's still better. It's still better. And then, of course, we have the final result. Now, as you can see with the tree, there is some element of an outline when it shifts focus. But it's so minimal, it's absolutely, it's good enough that somebody who doesn't know it's faked won't necessarily see it. It's only the more obsessed people that will see it. So I want to show you guys what the repair to something like this looks like. So you guys can see it. This is what it looks like. The tree initially goes up to here. And then what the in-paint node does, if you make this area transparent, is it enables you to fill it in based on the relative angle, which is a very, very handy effect if you want to do something like this in terms of repairing an image, at least to some extent, to get this working. So this is just what the repair looks like. Now, I really want to do a tutorial on this, which explains to you how to put this together and how to build it. But I can't make any promises as it relates to that. But it does not compensate for outlines, which you have to do with the maps that you input into the node. It does need depth information in order to function properly. And what else? Oh, it's only for HD and higher, full HD and higher. The reason being that the blurs don't blur very well relatively. They don't. It's not to knock Blender as a program or anything like that. It just doesn't work very well. So if you do follow the tutorial, if I get to do one, it'll pretty much only be useful to you if you render out in full HD and you use this for full HD. Which isn't an issue. I mean, if you only render full HD versions of the shots that you have this in, and then you take it back to a lower resolution, let's say you want to do a 50% resolution upload, then it's not a problem. But yeah. So I'm very thankful for this. God is super awesome. The second he showed me how to do certain things or whatever, I made notes of it and just did it later. So hopefully we'll get to a tutorial, which is absolutely what I would love to do. I would love to do a tutorial on this. So anyway, getting back to Exodus itself, where stuff like this would actually be required. So you guys remember this shot over here. This was where I applied the previous defocus node. You can see that the cloud is out of focus and they're in focus. And then the focus shifts, but the focus doesn't truly shift. The focus just fades. It's like a slideshow. It's not supposed to be a slideshow. Well, it's okay. You know, doing a slideshow is okay. Most people won't know the difference, but I know the difference. And now you guys who watch the vlogs know the difference. So getting the node to work correctly is absolutely vital for shots like this. It really is. It's a nightmare if stuff doesn't work right. Now you can see that the result is good here, but it does have some issues. Like I spoke in the previous vlog about this little problem over here where the fade stops. It goes too far and it stops too suddenly. It's not good. It's really, really not good. Now for this shot being so short, it doesn't matter because you don't have time to notice any issues. It's too abrupt. Plus, there's also this issue with the beams creating this focused area over here, which doesn't matter to me because I really think it's a cool effect. But it's technically not correct. But that's not the node's fault. That's my own lack of understanding as to how to make it work. So anyway, that was absolutely fun. So now we get to this week's work. But before I show you the actual footage for this week, I want to show you guys 2 sound effects that I did this morning for Exodus. And it's here where Pharaoh whistles or goes ooh. I prefer to make it a whistle. And of course, he snaps his fingers. So I recorded the whistle and the snap. So I'm going to play you guys that right now. Isn't that cool? Love it. It's so cool. I don't even know if, sorry. I don't even know if it's going to make it into the final. The point is just that the snap, I believe, has to be there because it's such a pivotal cue for the magicians to appear. As for the whistle, if music becomes the dominant focus of the scene, the whistle isn't necessary, or it will just be at a very, very low volume. All this stuff all the audio work is in the air while the video is being finished. I can do basic stuff like, for example, here at the start where we had like that heartbeat thing going to trigger the action sequences, so to speak. That was necessary. So anyway, getting to this week's footage. So last week I stopped about halfway through this shot. It ended over here. Let me just turn off this week's stuff so I can focus on that. No, this has to be on, and that can be hidden. So basically what I did was I took you guys through the shot, and the shot went all the way up to here, and I told you guys that I might stop it over here, about halfway in, because it's too long. And that's exactly what I did. So I'm going to show you what that looks like as I go through the new stuff. So basically what I wanted to do was to create a small moment of tension with well, not really tension, just to sort of like a build-up, with the magicians appearing, them having a sort of a standoff, and of course then the standoff kicks in, but with the magicians taking physical action, which is why these lines are coming in to split the screen again. In this sort of a stick tapping situation, I need to up the brightness for these. It's just their shadows and the sticks are dark, and it's, yeah, sometimes atmosphere is not atmosphere, it's just plain dark. So basically what happens is every magician taps down, and then the first one comes in. Now the animation for the magicians on the basic level has been, or not the basic, let's say it was about 80% finished, little less than 80%. Finished last week, and I started rendering it. I think it was even before the vlog, because that became one of the thumbnails. You remember seeing this sort of thing in the thumbnail. It was actually this very part of it. So I had only started rendering the feet or something last week. So anyway, I finished rendering these, and they also became part of a full shot where the magicians, do their whole thing, and I tried to shoot it in a creative way, and it just didn't turn out very well overall. So I knew that even from the beginning that I wanted, from the beginning of the shot, I felt it would be better to focus on some of the magicians in some creative way, whether either cut together or, it's the one and then the other and then another, and, that sort of like a montage. But the montage thing didn't really pan out, unfortunately. So anyway, oof. Full of coughs this morning. So anyway, what I did was I went with a single kneeling magician and a single standing magician. You'll see what I mean by that in a minute. Which is what I felt led to do, and I really believe that that's the best option in this case, at least for this particular choreography. So what happens is he comes in like that, and he prepares for his throw, you could say. He levitates it, and boom. He throws it. So anyway, and then he pushes it, and it calls it a little bit backward, and starts in the transformation process, which also functions as a transitional point into the next standing magician. Love that. Now that wasn't even animation. You can see that it comes out of the nail instead of out of the hand, but there's nothing I can do about that. That's just the way Blender works. It works from the very center. I tried to center the hand, but it didn't just go so well. But anyway, so what happens is he does that, and boom, and then it opens up. Okay, and then you have a standing one, which literally chucks it, but as he throws it, it also levitates, and it rotates an extra one and slowly comes to a stand opposite the magician. You can see over here, and he uses his hand to instruct on how it's supposed to land and move and all that kind of stuff. So what happens is it stops, he calls it back, and it drops down. So I don't think I can show the whole shot here. No. Anyway, it lands and it comes back, and then it falls over like that. And then of course they stand at the ready, and the transformation kicks in. Now what happens over here, you can see that it's kind of messy. That's because it was another shot that rendered way too fast. And I'm not talking about low render times. I'm talking about my animation speed was ridiculous. It was literally, again, 2 times too fast. Which is very easy to make that sort of mistake, ironically. Anyway, so I had to interpolate it. And I had to interpolate it quite a few times to get a result as good as this because of the major movement between frames. You can see that he's here, and then he's almost his own width in the next frame moved over. You can see that. So the interpolator did struggle a lot to reconstruct this particular section. It struggled even more on a different setting. I put more in the description, not the description, in the post about why it struggled. So you can check that out. So you can see that it actually did a fairly good job. But you can see on vague areas like the tiles, it still struggled a bit. And you can also see on thin areas like the sticks, it also struggled. But when it plays back smoothly, you notice it, but it's not super obvious, at least not to me. I mean, look at that. It almost looks like it's supposed to be that way. Like it's part of the, you could say like part of their manipulation, part of their, let's call it distortion. I don't know. Anyway, so moving on from that, the sticks obviously had to transform into snakes. Now, I did a snake transform animation many vlogs ago. You can check out the thumbnail for a white cobra. And then the transformation had to occur. Now what happened here is I had to replace these rods with the rod that actually transforms, because these rods did not come paired with the snakes with the magicians, because it's just too much mesh information. It is, because it's already animated as well. So what had to happen here was I had to place them in similar spots. So what I did was I left these here and added the snake transformations and just spaced them as close as I possibly could. And the thing with the keyframes and moving everything up meant that the noise for the tail's consistent movement, to breathe a little bit more life into it, meant that the sticks already started bending, which actually made a fairly cool effect. So you can see they're super straight over here. No trickery, no fakery, it's all real. And then they're down on the ground, and of course the initiation of the transformation kicks in, and boom, they start transforming. Now the reason I went for this effect was because I felt late to do I'm going to say fiery effect. The reason is the which I want you to guys to go check out in the previous post about what the word enchantments mean in the Hebrews as it relates to the magicians and their stuff. You'll understand exactly why I chose this effect. So go check that out. I have to provoke you guys to go check it out. Anyway, so then they start moving around and insta cobra. Just love that shot. It's so cool. So then, of course, you know, they feel all powerful and whoopah, and then it threatens and, you know, I'm so cool and you're so not, and I'm so small, and then something interesting happens. Oh yeah, they get eaten. So what I actually did animation to make them be eaten. You can see that frame by frame. So you can't really see it in the actual thing because it moves too fast. But if it's not there, you will definitely notice that he just flew over it and you muted the render, which is not good at all. So he comes through and he's like, and of course he didn't just eat one, he ate all of them. And then of course there were 3 others that need to be eaten as well. So this one gets eaten from behind. Whoopah. I just love this one. This one is the funniest to me. Look at what happens with the head as he gets scooped up. You can see whenever you push someone from behind, if they don't expect it, there is this recoil on the head. So this one is just the absolute most hilarious thing to me. Every time I see it, I start chuckling about it. And of course, then there were 2. As you can see, I did animation for the whole situation. It wasn't that I just tried to sneak it out. You know, the whole thing was animated. Also, you can see that the wings and well, you can't really see it super clearly, but you can definitely notice that he does move. I mean, take a look at the wings over there. You can see that as he goes, you know, pushes the wings out again. Now, you don't see it here. You see it in the final result as in the result works, but you don't see the animation that went into making this work. So I want to show you guys what that looks like. Now, whenever you do a shot that's very long, in essence, but you have to cut it short, the best way to animate it is to animate with some meat, so to speak. And that meant, at least in this case, that I had to animate the whole flying around thing in a very practical way. So it was sort of choreographed how he would eat them. So the first frame starts over there. So I'm going to take you guys through the animation. Now you can see the little snakes over here. Just for the sake of illustration, I'm going to make this thing darker, a bluish color. So what happens is he comes in, starts about there, comes in, swoops, flies around, flaps a little bit, comes in for this one, flies around, makes another pass and comes in, wow, gets him. And that's why the result works, because there's a lot of animation that went into it to make it look a heck of a lot better. So obviously you can see that I didn't leave the whole sequence in. I just took the parts where the snakes got eaten, you know, that part, and coming around that part. So it looks a lot faster than it actually is, but yeah. This took, I would say, most of the afternoon yesterday to do. But I'm very happy with the result. It's super, super awesome. And of course, then he would obviously come in for a landing between Moses and Aaron, and the magicians would be shocked, and Pharaoh would be mad, and they would be chased out, he would be unhappy, and then we continue with the rest of the narrative. So now I want to show you guys what this looks like when it plays through smoothly. Just one of the coolest things ever. I mean, seriously, I am super satisfied with this shot. It was one of the, you could say, most interactive shots so far. Apart from the frogs that are still to come, this is one of the most interactive shots that had very complex things taking place, and I am just super, super grateful it turned out this well. I can't tell you. There is no editing it. Seriously, there is no changing it. I am leaving it as is. Anyway, that's it for this week. Have a great one, and God bless you.